Welcome back to the lab, everybody. I'm ill.Gates, and I'm very proud to announce the release of my new template for the Akai APC40. It's a very popular controller, and I had a lot of requests to port over my trigger finger template to the APC40 because a lot of the users were having trouble achieving the punch-in momentary effects that I'd achieved on the trigger finger template. So a bunch of people butted heads with it and came up with some really great solutions, and I decided that, you know, if I was going to offer this template, I should own an APC40 myself and really, you know it, so that I can offer support to everybody. So I went out and bought one, and while I was getting to know it, I was actually really impressed by how versatile and cool a controller it was. I was under the impression that you sort of had to use it the way it was originally designed, and that, you know, it was not as flexible as it actually is. But after unmapping everything and then remapping the commands I wanted, I found I could do a lot of really cool stuff with it. Like Will Marshall and Nonagon helped me make these VU meters that break up the 8 channels into a much more usable format where it's easier to tell where you are without having to look at Ableton and look at the controller and kind of do the math of what clip is where. So we made these cool VU meters, and you know, when I was getting to know it, another popular request was for an internal mixing version. Like I've always mixed with a DJ mixer, and I typically prefer it for various reasons. But when I was programming the APC, especially with this internal mixing capacity in mind, I was really impressed by how well the controller and Ableton responded to this. And you know, the real clincher for me was when I tried the crossfader and I found that I could actually crab on it. I'd never been able to crab on a hardware crossfader, so I was like, okay, I'll sink my teeth in, see what we can do here. And I was thinking, you know, if there's not really any point in emulating a DJ mixer, right? What can we do with Ableton and the APC that could improve upon the functionality of a normal DJ mixer for DJs? So I'm thinking, what do you do when you're mixing? Typically, when you're introducing a track, you introduce first the mid-range quietly, and then as the track gains volume, you increase the highs and the lows until it's all zero and takes full dominance. So I was like, how can I program that onto a fader, right? And I often mix with Highpass and lowpass to create a band pass, right, on my trigger finger template. So I thought, what if the volume faders, instead of just doing volume, are a crossing high and low pass, right? So then the sound of that is basically what I just described. It introduces first the mid-range, and then as the volume increases, expands the bandwidth of the filtering until the very highs and the very lows only come in at the end. And you can do your whole mix with one fader. It's amazing. It sounds so silky and smooth. And then when you pop it up and down, it sounds really cool too. So that was really a great breakthrough. Another thing, I was thinking about EQing, right? When do you, as a DJ, ever cross 12 o'clock on your EQ? Very rarely. Normally you just use the EQ subtractively. The only time you cross 12 o'clock is when you want to achieve more dominance in a certain frequency range, right? So, and you usually barely turn it past 12 o'clock. So what I did was I programmed the EQs so that when you go past 12 o'clock, instead of turning it up a lot, which is usually useless, it turns it up just a bit, but at the same time, it side chains out that frequency range on the other side, right? So below 12 o'clock is normal subtractive EQing on the EQ knob, but then when you cross 12 o'clock, you get this new like dominant smart mixer sidechain command that sounds really great too. So after programming that, I found, you know, I actually preferred the internal mixing version. I played out like in those video clips you saw where you could see me using it at the Revenge of the Octopus party. Though I was playing with the full internal mixing mode, and it was really a dream. You know, I was quite surprised. So yeah, let me crack it open and show you how rad this thing actually is. Alright, welcome inside the APC template. First of all, I'm going to show you how to set it up. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into Finder, into that folder I zipped for you, and get the APC Gates Will Marshall folder. And then you go to Live inside your application, you right click and show package contents. That's how you get inside of a program. Now you'll notice inside the app resources folder here, there's another folder called MIDI remote scripts. You're going to want to drag APC440 Will Marshall into MIDI remote scripts. And then the APC will be able to communicate with Ableton properly. So when you go back to Ableton, go into your preferences, and then you want to set them up as such. APC440 Will Marshall, you'll see it here in your drop down, then input and output, go to the APC. For your input from the APC, you're going to want to have track and remote on, and for the output, you're only going to want to have track on. Otherwise, the APC is going to do all kinds of weird bossy things with the lights and cause friction. So now, you'll notice when you open the APC template that it's empty. So that's because I like to drag tracks in what I call clip packs on the fly, and I make a clip pack by breaking a track into 4 or 5 cue points, dragging them to the library, naming them, putting the BPM first, and then having search tags at the end. And the search tags allow you to take a set in any direction at the drop of a hat. So I'm just going to grab some clips here and just pop them in. Each channel, there's a performance parts channel where you can put like samples or acapellas or what have you, and that'll really allow you to really perform the track in a much more kind of vital way. So you'll notice that the tracks and the performance parts for each side come in here on these channels, and these channels are blank. Well, that's because those channels are going to be VU meters, which are going to give you a very accurate picture where the RMS levels of your tracks are at any given point, and it's also going to help visually break up these 9 strips of buttons, because when you're sitting there trying to do the math of what clips are where, it makes a template less intuitive. And I'm all about just making an intuitive, simple, modular, powerful template that you can learn by muscle memory, that looks good and sounds good, and you can just rock it and have people be excited about that. So let's see how the VU meters work. So you got left here, right here, and master here. So when you hit play, now you can see the track VU meters lighting up here and the master lighting up here, but not for the right side because it doesn't have any audio coming out of it. Now, one great thing about the VU meters, which were incidentally programmed by Will Marshall, thank you very much, Will. He has an excellent APC40 template that you should check out as well. One thing that you'll notice about them is that when you clip, the APC lets you know, because when you clip software output at the output stage, it just sounds terrible. So here, check it out. See? So that'll let you know when you're redlining either on the master channel or on either the individual channels, and it'll keep your audio sounding clean and good. So now underneath the clip triggers for each channel, there are 5 punch-ins for each of these channels. So the 5 punch-ins for the left tracker here, the 5 punch-ins for the left performance tracker here, and they are beat repeat, which is grid is controlled here on the master fader. The delay send, which is controlled with the feedback here and a high-low pass filter there. And then underneath that you got reverse, stop, and transform. So I'll just show you how they sound. So that's a lot of fun. Now, the volume faders are actually much more than just volume faders. They're supplemented with a high and low pass filter which cross in the middle, and that is to make it so that when you are mixing, if you want to mix in a track gracefully, you can just move the volume fader up without having to ride the EQs the whole time. You can maybe ride the gain as the track achieves dominance, but typically DJs mix in first the mid-range, and then as the track gets quieter, more highs and lows until it all zeros at the top. Well, these volume faders do all that with one fader. So they're kind of like smart volume faders, and they'll make your mixes really smooth and sexy. Like here, check it out. and then you can almost play that as an effect where you're bringing the channel in and out. And the I've found them to really, like, you can almost do like a crossfade where you just take one volume down and the other one up, and the mix would sound great every time. So that's really, I think that's a pretty fun innovation. And then for each side, there are chain selectors. So this channel 3 is the effect tweak for the left main channel, and channel 4 is the effect tweak for the supplementary parts. And both of their chain selectors are controlled here by knob 5, and it's knob 8 for the right side. So these multi-effects, it works kind of like on a Pioneer where you select the effect with one knob and tweak it with the other. And the effects are, first there's a loop, then there's a dirty high pass, then there's a kind of delay melter effect, then a rhythmic LFO style gate, and then there's a fake sidechain, which you would typically only use for mixing. It's kind of a way of removing the downbeats and creating that kind of electro house pumpy kick drum effect. So here, I'll just show you what all the effects sound like here. And that last one, the kind of pumpy sidechain effect, it's not actually a sidechain, it's an auto pan that's set to just dip the volume every downbeat. And you can use that to create a really kind of pumping mix effect. It's really, really fun. So then for each side, after the chain selector, you have high pass and low pass. I probably don't need to explain what those are. One thing though, I did layer up the filters, so it's like multiple filters in parallel, and they kind of move in and out of each other in interesting ways. It just warms up the sound a bit. And there's a cabinet in there too, so if you're like missing cabinet and you're concerned about it, that's where it is, and it's not really a big deal. I made it so that they sound good either way. And then up here you got gain for each side, treble, mid, and bass. And I was thinking about how DJs actually mix. You almost never cross 12 o'clock on your EQs because that would peak out the sound. It would sound bad. So you actually only use half of the EQ knob, like the subtractive half, on most DJ mixers. So I figured that if I made these EQ knobs so that when you turn it up past 12 o'clock, yes, it boosts the gain slightly, but it also sidechains out the corresponding frequency range on the other channel. And that's really good for achieving dominance in a mix. So the up and down arrows on the bank select I left. I did not allow control of the left and right arrows because it would mess up the mappings and the VU meters and everything. Tap, tempo, and nudge I kept. A lot of people use those. The crossfader I kept too, and then I made play and rec hard cuts. So this transform on the record arm buttons is accomplished with a dummy clip down here. And it's quantized to 30-second notes. It's as fast as they would let you go on the dummy clip. And when you get the hang of it, it's good for getting really kind of precise quantized transforms. But if you want a more free-form transform, you can use the crossfader. I was actually able to crab on the crossfader, which was pretty impressive. That was one of the things that really made me decide to sink my teeth into the internal mixing version of this template, actually. And then the play and record buttons are hard cuts. So if you hit play, it's just like slapping the crossfader all the way over. And you can do like fast crossfader cuts with these on either side. So that's really a lot of fun. And then for cueing, you just use the bottom of the VU meter. So burp, 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 burp. So the 4 channels are each cued on the VU meters. Then for the external mixing version, it's basically all the same. The left side goes to the left channel on the DJ mixer, the whole right side goes to the right channel, and then these gain and EQ knobs then apply to the supplemental performance parts channels. And that's really handy because that will allow you to treat it more like 4 turntables instead of 2 turntables with a track and performance parts on each side. So I know some people like to have 4 decks. I'm more of a 2 deck and performance parts kind of guy, but some people like to have 4 decks. So yeah, give it a go. I'm sure you'll be able to get the hang of it quite quickly. Please, if you have any feedback, comments, threads are always open. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. I'm ill.Gates, and I'll see you next time. Peace.